That's
honestly.
all right, guys. Thank you so much for being here and for your patience in getting started this evening. My name is Lisa Wynkoop, and I'm going to talk to you guys tonight about Slim. And I know you guys are probably like, Slim, like how boring can that be? Because it's like been around since what, 2008, and everybody knows everything about Slim. But hopefully, you guys will see some things or learn some things that you didn't know, and maybe be able to tell a little bit different between the two, and maybe who should get hunger control versus MBA, and it's going to be some basics, but hopefully we'll dig in a little bit deeper as well. So in typical me fashion, I'm going to share my screen and pull up my PowerPoint, and I can see Angela and Kim. So if for some reason you guys something happens and it stops, like it stopped progressing through the slides one time, or if something happens, just one of you guys raise your hands or yell at me, please. Can you guys see it now? Somebody tell me, can you see? Okay, good. All right. I'm going to see if I can do a full screen. Um, and then here we go. Okay. Let's see. All right. Still good? All right. We're going to go just kind of jump right in. I do think it's really important to understand why this is such an important product. And of course, it is our cornerstone product. Hold on just a second, guys. I am going to have to move you guys out of the way. Sorry about that. I love you, but you get right over my writing. So you're gonna have to unmute and yell at me. So I think it's really important. Most of us understand that Slim is our cornerstone product. You understand what it does. It balances your blood sugar, your cholesterol, your lipids, has a little bit of an anti-inflammatory benefit. It's going to help with sugar and carb cravings, things like that. But why is that so important? And I was actually online a couple of days ago and saw this statistic, and I was mind blown by that. And it actually, the last time I looked it up is 1 in 4, and I think that was about a year and a half ago. So it hasn't been that long that it's increased to 1 in 3 adults have a metabolic syndrome, and that means they either have obesity, they're pre-diabetic, they have insulin resistance to some degree, they have high blood pressure, high cholesterol. Um, and we know, of course, what all of that leads to. So those are never good things to have. And because this one simple product does so much towards fixing so much of this and more, like we talk about balancing your insulin. Well, your insulin is your uh, major hormone. And so if you balance that, it's affecting everything else in your body. All the other hormones are going to be affected by that. So this is an amazing, amazing product. And I think everybody on the call, and probably those who will watch the recording, have heard my testimony. And I'm not going to go into it again, but what I will share is that I started very slowly and I only drank Slim for 3 days. And this was the original Slim before we had the differentiation between microbiome activating and hunger control. And I drank it for 3 days. Then that night, the third night, I slept through the night for the first time in 5 years. Literally deep, like into your mattress sleep. I think I'd been having hot flashes and waking up every hour and a half or so, and I had not slept for 5 years. I did not have a hot flash. I slept through the night. I woke up with the most amazing sustained energy for the day, which I never had in 5 years. And the brain fog had lifted. Like those three things alone, the energy, the better sleep, and the brain fog lifting, were enough for me to drink this drink for the rest of my life. Now, I know that doesn't always happen that quickly for everyone, like it did for me. I was very, very blessed. And I think it was God's way of telling me, stay the course, because I really honestly didn't expect what I got from Plexus. I really thought, well, I'll just use the 60-day money back guarantee. And here I am 7 years later. But I honestly feel like this is such an amazing product. And a lot of times we are asked, like, if you could only choose one product, well, I typically go Ease because it's such a great anti-inflammatory. Or I think Probio 5 because it's done for me so much more than any other probiotic ever did. But then I sit back and I was working on this and I was like, gosh, I really think it's Slim because it really set the groundwork for everything else that I took. And I think it does that for everyone. I really think it's vital to balancing your body. And I've often said I wish they had called it balance. So what is insulin resistance? And this is something that Plexus Corporate is really, really sensitive to. They have everything they do, it revolves around knowing that they need to avoid insulin resistance and make sure that we are not using things like sugar, anything that's going to spike sugar. If you notice, any of the sweeteners they use have a very low glycemic index, because this is huge. This is what is setting us up for all of the problems that we're seeing in our society these days. So basically, it's when your cells, any of your cells, your muscles, your fat, your liver, they don't respond to the insulin uptake. And so you have excess glucose or sugar in your blood. And when that happens, if it continues for a long period of time, it can lead to type 2 diabetes. Um, and then all of the things snowball from there. If you think about a glass of water, if you pour a bunch of sugar into the water gets thicker and it doesn't pour as freely. Well, think about that in your blood vessels and think about what will happen. That's why when the blood gets to the feet, because of gravity, it doesn't pump up as easily. You have circulatory problems, you have poor wound healing, you have eye issues because of the thickness of the blood doesn't vascularize the eyes as well. I mean, it's just it affects everything. It affects your heart. It affects your breathing, and it can affect everything. So then, of course, the insulin's job is to produce more insulin because you've got more blood. But of course, it's still not, if the organs and tissues aren't uptaking the glucose, you're just dumping more insulin, but you're still getting more and more blood sugar, and it's just like this vicious cycle. So the symptoms that you will see in somebody who's starting to have insulin resistance are listed here, and it's really pretty much what we see a lot in our society. The hunger and thirst people talk about, but really the hungry even after eating a meal, increased urination. And some of these you're thinking, well, that's diabetes. And yes, it is. If it progresses type 2 diabetes, people are really thirsty. They're peeing all the time. You can get that tingling in the hands and the feet, the tiredness, the frequent infections, and then evidence of high blood sugar levels in your blood work. You'll start seeing it there over time as well. So what can you do about insulin sensitivity? This is straight from one of, I can't remember what source I got this from. It was like MedPage or somewhere like that. I have to go back and look. But they give these 3 points, and they say that really getting active is a really good thing to do. Exercise, of course, can reduce your insulin resistance, both short and long term. Weight loss is a no-brainer as well. And they specifically said that there are absolutely no medications that have been proven or approved, I should say, to treat insulin resistance. But if you dig a little deeper, they do talk about supplements. Oh, and insulin. I thought it said inulin. And the specific ones they talk about the most are chromium, berberine, and magnesium. Now, berberine, we don't have in any product except, I think it's interesting, we do have it in Restore. And I think they put it in Restore because they're trying to help you go through the night without being hungry, waking up the next morning hungry. So I think that's why they put it in there, which is interesting because it is, and they don't want pregnant women doing reset anyway, but know that berberine is one of the supplements that pregnant women and nursing women should not have because it does cross the placenta, for example, if for a pregnant woman, and can affect the fetus. So do not have your pregnant people drinking Restore. Just a little side note there. But in addition to those, ALA, which we know is in our Slim. Remember, we have chromium already. We have magnesium in BioCleanse. We have the ALA, the alpha lipoic acid, in Slim. Then vitamin D, zinc, and folate. And of course, folate we have as well in X Factor Plus. So these are from straight sources, not like alternative sources, where they have said that these will help with insulin sensitivity. Okay, so what is in our pink drink, you guys? What I'm going to try to do is talk about, in general, what the two have in common, and then I'm going to talk about microbiome activating and then hunger control. So we know it's plant-based. We know it's 100% vegetarian, it's non-GMO, gluten-free, naturally colored and sweetened, and all the amazing minerals, nutrients, all the plant extracts, the antioxidants. And those include these 4 main ones. Now I'm going to talk about chromium in just a minute, but the other 3 very quickly: chlorogenic acid, alpha lipoic acid, and those 2 are antioxidants. And then Garcinia cambogia is a fruit extract, and that blocks your body's ability to make fat, and also helps with that appetite suppression. Chlorogenic acid helps maintain that glucose metabolism, and it also can help burning fat because it increases your body heat internally. And then ALA is a fatty acid. It's naturally occurring in every cell in the body, but it is a very potent antioxidant, and it helps recycle other antioxidants such as vitamin C and E and glutathione, which we know is super, super important for overall health as well. So let's talk specifically about chromium because that's one of the big things that people talk about when they talk about our pink drink. And ours is this specific form, and it's a combination of both chromium and niacin. And it's just they use that because they found that it's the most bioavailable form. Um, it is an essential trace mineral, and it supports energy and healthy glucose metabolism, which I know you guys have probably heard a bazillion times. It's going to help transport the glucose into the cells. Again, remember, sometimes the cells are resistant and they don't uptake, so the glucose stays in the blood. Well, this is going to help that process along. So what happens if you have a chromium deficiency? I thought this is really interesting because this is when, if you look at some of these things, not all of them, but some of these things that are signs of deficiency, just drinking slim will improve. If you think about it, changes in weight, low energy or fatigue, the cholesterol. And I think it's really interesting. I talk about this further down in the slides. You can actually make claims that slim helps with cholesterol and blood pressure, which a lot of times we can't talk about illnesses or medical diagnoses. And with this, you can. But they also talk about poor skin health. And how many people do you know started drinking slim and noticed a change in their skin? Probably because they were also drinking more water, they're more hydrated, but also the antioxidants in it. But think about the low concentration and poor memory, that brain foggy kind of feeling that I had that lifted. Again, the delay time in wound healings and recovery from surgery, eye health, things that we see and we were talking about with increased blood sugar or blood in your sugar or sugar in your blood, and then mood changes. And that I think is really very much because of this, you know, up and down cycling we do with blood sugars throughout the day, where we have that sugar high and then the crash and then the sugar high and then the crash. When we're drinking slim, that stays more balanced throughout the day, so we don't have as many mood changes. And then if you add in the fact that we have since in most recent years reformulated slim and had the prebiotics added, that's certainly going to help with mood disorders because not just of the chromium, but also because we're improving gut health, and we know that connection there. Okay, so we know we have two types of slim. They have the same similarities. Whenever you're talking to somebody about them, you can always say they're really basically the same. There's just two main differences. The flavor that's offered, the original flavor, because they both come in black cherry lime now, but the original flavor is different, and the type of prebiotic fiber. And I really, when I'm trying to decide who should drink which one, it really is based on that prebiotic fiber, and we'll talk about that as well. So just as an overview, I know most people that are here tonight probably know the difference between prebiotics and probiotics, but I wanted to put this in here just because somebody down the road who's brand spanking new may be watching this and may not know the difference between them. And I think really at the most basic of level, just know that the probiotics are those really good uh, bacteria that is going to give us the really good gut health, and we want that balance between the good and the bad bacteria. And the prebiotics come first, the pre, so they're going to be feeding the pro or the good biotics. That is the most basic and really the only thing you need to understand. This is just going to give you a little bit more detail. Prebiotics tend to be a little bit more resistant and resilient versus probiotics are a little bit more fragile. Of course, you know, when we've developed ours, we developed these amazing delayed released capsules that don't open until they get into the gut 45 minutes typically after you take them. And they're also resistant to the heat of the body and the caustic nature of the stomach. So we've gone beyond what most companies do, but they still are fragile. So it's those things are super important compared to like prebiotics, which tend to be a lot more hardy, if you will. Okay, so let's talk about
Can I
slim.
say something real quick?
Of course.
Give you a second to take a drink of your water, even?
Yes, please.
Okay, this is the thing. I have so many thoughts about things you've said already. Look, I've been at this for 9.5 years. I am so like into learning and remembering. Like we just forget things. We forget how cool our products are. And it's so important that we re-engage and listen to these things that we maybe tucked away somewhere, forgot to be excited about, or forgot that they even were a thing. But more importantly, or equally as importantly for me, is that I'm funneling my new people to these trainings and going because I want them to get the passion that we have. Because the way that we got it, was by reading 10,000 testimonials. This is like kind of a fast track to getting that kind of passion. You know what I
Yes.
mean? At least that's how I got it. So thank you for doing this. And even though some of us have heard these things before, I'm so grateful to be hearing them again
I'm so glad. I'm
in a
so glad.
condensed package.
Well, I sometimes get worried that I'm going a little too deep. So I should have given the disclaimer again. I try to do that every call. Kind of take what you want, but know that you can always come back. And I feel like if you've heard all of this once, and then maybe go read the product information sheet when you have some free time and you see it again. And every time you see it, but if nothing else, you might just go, oh, you know what? I remember something about slim microbiome activating, how it increases things by like hundreds of times. Then you go back and find it on the product information sheet or somewhere else in the back office. So, yeah, I think it's just really, it is. When I first started, that's what I did. I just dug into trainings. I watched every YouTube video I could on the product, and I just wanted to like but I didn't feel like I had to memorize everything. It's just that after 7 years of talking about it, I remember most of this innately by now. Um, my little dog over here. Sorry. So this one, the way it's different is not just the flavor, but also the type of prebiotic. And I'm just going to call it XOS because if you look at that word, if I really tried, I could say it, but it's really not necessary. I did put it there because I think it's important for you to know what XOS stands for, but don't feel like you need to know it or be able to repeat it. It's just as sufficient to say XOS is the prebiotic fiber in there. And what I think is interesting, and I didn't put it in here when I was talking to the scientists at convention a few years back, was talking to them about their choice of this one. And the reason I asked them about it specifically is because my son has ulcerative colitis, which is super, super sensitive to fiber. And then I have another lady on my team who has Crohn's, super, super sensitive. And of course, other people as well. But those were the two I was thinking of the most. And they tolerate this so well, whereas a lot of times they don't tolerate fiber, they don't tolerate some prebiotics in general. And I know they both don't tolerate hunger control very well. And I knew that that was because of the polydextrose, but I was talking to him about this one. And I knew from some of the research I did that this was a really special prebiotic. And they confirmed that the reason they chose this particular one was twofold. It is one of the smallest, if not the smallest. It's one of at least one of the smallest prebiotic fibers you can find. So it is easily absorbed and utilized by the body. For people who have IBS-D, for example, or Crohn's or colitis. So anybody is going to, be able to utilize it easily, but especially people with bowel disorders. But the other reason is because it's one of the ones that only feeds the good bacteria. And prebiotic fibers typically just feed indiscriminately. The good, the bad doesn't matter. They're just going to feed the bacteria. This one only feeds the good bacteria. So it's a really cool, again, like Angela was saying, we have like the best scientists and the best medical board. I mean, they do these deep dives and they're looking for the things that make us unique, that make us different from all the other companies out there. And this is one of the ones that gets me really excited. There's, many, many of these examples, but this is one of the ones. But this has been tested. There's 4 or 5, maybe 6 references at the bottom. I think both hunger control and MBA, the product information sheet of the peer-reviewed testing. And what they found when they did this, when they basically did an in vitro study that they mimicked the GI system, they found that using XOS produced up to 365 times more lactobacillus, up to 290 times more bifidobacterium, and about 250 times more Akkermansia. Now, your body produces Akkermansia, and it's a natural microbe that actually helps with weight loss. And it actually, if you're deficient in it, will slow your metabolism. So increasing it is going to help with your metabolism. It's going to help with weight loss. And it's just an amazing thing that this little teeny prebiotic does this, increases these things as much as they do. I also thought this little asterisk at the bottom was really interesting. This is directly from the product information sheet, that these things can be increased after just a few days of using Slim. Like it's a short-term benefit, but they can also decrease pretty significantly in just 1 week of not drinking it. So that daily intake, I always tell people, it's like, birth control pill. If you don't take it, it doesn't work. And so it's really important for people to understand, like, yeah, you're going to miss a day here and there probably, but really get back on the horse as soon as you can, because your gut microbiome is so delicate and we insult it every day. And if we're not giving it the good stuff, you're going to get behind the 8 ball again. Um, oh, why is it now all of a sudden not letting me go forward? Well, we'll do it that way. It also increases production of short chain fatty acids, including butyrate and propionate. And these two we talked about the last time I did the call because they also are increased by intake of vital biome. These are a little bit less. I think vital biome increases butyrate by like 67%, and propionate 30 something, maybe 37%. So it's a little bit less, but these are really, really important fatty acids that help with energy metabolism. So that's probably one of the ways that we feel that little bit of energy, that sustained energy besides the blood sugar balance, because you're not doing this all day. This may be another way that we have that from Slim. And then that appetite regulation is going to come from the propionate. So I think that's pretty stinking cool. Um, Specific to MBA, the flavors, the raspberry lemon, watermelon, it only has 5 calories. I did throw in here that hunger control does have 15 calories, just so that you know that difference between the two. Just like all of our other products, there's no artificial anything. It is gluten-free, it's vegan, it's non-GMO. There's no common allergens, although the prebiotic does come from a non-GMO corn. So if you know someone who is allergic to corn, they should probably talk to their doctor. They're probably not going to find a problem using it, but it's always smart to have them check with their doctor first. And of course, it's sweetened with stevia. Let's talk about hunger control. So again, besides the flavor, it's really just the prebiotic fiber that is the biggest difference. And instead of XOS, they use polydextrose. Um, this They use it in amounts that have clinically proven to decrease your hunger and keep you from having cravings. So the main purpose of hunger control, besides the all the other things we talked about in the beginning, the blood glucose metabolism, some anti-inflammatory properties, all the things. Kizzy, stop. You are going to have help with hopefully not overeating as much, not snacking as much late at night. Hopefully you'll have that one portion, but not the second helping at dinner, kind of thing. So this is because of that polydextrose, and we'll talk about that, why that happens in just a second.
Hey, can I throw
Mhm.
something out there about the stevia
Sure,
because we're going to use this to train so much?
sure.
Recently I had a bunch of people coming to me and saying, "Have you seen this about stevia? There could be problems with stevia." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, because it's in everything." So I did a deep dive. I promise you guys, I would have like made I would have done whatever needed to be done to get the attention of corporate if I found these things to be true or a problem. Here's what I found. The things are true, but we use like the whole crushed stevia leaf in the one and only form where it's not a problem. So just without going into like deeper details, believe me, I did my fair share of reading. I think Lisa and I talked about it.
Mhm.
Um, so we have the right form of stevia, and I just want you to know that if you start to hear that and that becomes a buzz thing that people are saying is a problem, there's different forms. It makes a difference.
That's really, 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 really good point. And I may have that in the bottom, like when I talk about concerns and questions that we typically get, but that might have been one of the ones that I wanted to add and didn't get to today, Angela. So I'm glad you brought that up. The other thing that I think people don't realize is like when you go down the grocery store aisle and you see the stevia on the shelves, many of them are not the good quality stevia, but they're also uber processed and they're really just crap. So there is stevia out there that is not good for you. Ours is not it. So I'm really glad you pointed that out. I did want to talk about polydextrose pretty specifically though, because one of the questions I get from a lot of people is why do they add sugar to it? Because it has "ose" on the end. They think it's sugar. And so I always want to talk a little bit about this because you're probably going to get asked that down the road at some point if you haven't already. And this is a really cool ingredient that we added. So it's not a sugar. It is derived from non-GMO cornstarch, and it's plant-based. Um, the carbohydrates in it, I think this is super cool. And this is an important fact about how it works. They're linked together in a way that makes them resistant to our digestive enzymes. So when it gets into your stomach, when you drink the Slim, it doesn't get degraded by the digestive enzymes so that it can start doing its job, which is to expand so that you feel fuller longer. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more in just a second. So, of course, it's going to be effective in helping you decrease your caloric intake. Um, it also helps with increasing prebiotic activity. And then I did put a little blurb here about a blinded randomized placebo-controlled study that was done. And I thought this was kind of interesting, that if you took a pre-meal supplement that had the same amount of polydextrose in it that we have in Slim before a meal, let's say breakfast, your desire to eat the meal following that meal was still lower, and then still lower the meal after that. So basically what they're saying, if you drink this before breakfast, you're still going to not have a huge desire. Like, you're not going to want to have 2 or 3 helpings at lunch. And then there's still going to be a little bit of an effect even before dinner. So I thought that was a really interesting study and a really interesting fact for you guys to know. I do kind of, if I'm have somebody doing hunger control, I do change when they drink it depending on what they share with me. If they really snack heavy at night and they're really struggling with that, like 8 or 9 o'clock at night, I have them drink it before lunch instead of before breakfast, because I want them to have the effects longer into the evening. But for most people, drinking it before breakfast, if they want to, is totally fine, and they'll get the benefits throughout the day. So basically, let's talk about, oh, and let me just go back to this for a second. I don't know if I put it further down in, but because polydextrose needs water to expand, it is actually best if you drink your Slim after drinking a glass of water. If you can drink an 8-ounce glass of water, and I don't know how many people really know that. I think it's actually in the product information sheet with barking dogs. If you drink that glass of water, you'll actually get better results than if you don't. And you just, people think, oh, I'm drinking enough water because it's in my pink drink. But if you can drink a glass of water first, you'll actually see better results because it makes the polydextrose expand better. It's just a little bit more effective, and then keeps you feel fuller longer. Okay, instructions for both. Most people know this. I think it's really important to note that they do recommend drinking it 30 to 60 minutes before one of your 2 main meals of the day. Oh, that's where I put it. It's best if you drink 8 ounces of water before drinking it. You can mix it in room temperature water, either one of them, but you can mix MBA in cold water. Just can't do it with hunger control because it will clump. So always mix it in like a little bit of room temperature and then add cold water, or just mix it in room temperature water and add ice if you prefer it cold. And then I think it's really important. This came up in a chat. It might have been one of our chats. But somebody was asking about heating it, and their father, oh, I know who it was. Never mind. It wasn't our chat. Their father had been heating it and he loved it. He thought it was so good. I'm like, no, you can't do that. It will do its plant, Scott. You guys, if you heat it, you're going to break them down because that's what heat does. And the green coffee bean extract, the chlorogenic acid, is especially sensitive to heat. So just make sure your people know not to heat it and drink it as a tea, because they won't get the same benefits from it. Okay, so here are the claims that you can make for both of them, which I think is really cool. Obviously, it's interesting. They want you to say supports a healthy glucose metabolism, not blood sugar balance, for whatever reason, because that sounds more medical to me than blood sugar balance, but whatever. These are the compliant claims that you can make. Helps support cardiovascular health, helps maintain healthy blood pressure levels already in the normal level. Now they're not going to say that it'll bring your blood pressure down or anything like that. Although not compliant to post this, a lot of my folks who have high blood pressure have been able to either decrease their blood pressure meds or come off their meds after starting Slim. And then I've had people with traditionally low blood sugar or blood pressure that had come up to a normal range, so they don't get that dizziness if they stand up kind of thing. It does support hydration by encouraging you to drink more water. And I think we've all noticed that whenever we started doing Slim. And then it is clinically demonstrated to help you lose weight. That's kind of a no-brainer. But I really love that you can talk about cardiovascular health and blood pressure in addition to the other claims. Okay, so there are a few side effects, just mainly because of the prebiotics that are in it, especially the polydextrose. There can be a lot of gas and bloating, especially if you have somebody who has gut issues like Crohn's, colitis, IBS. I think those people really struggle with polydextrose. I know that some people do just fine with it. But if you have somebody who really wants to lose weight and they have one of those issues, I would absolutely not start them with a full stick. I would start them with a half a stick, maybe even a quarter of a stick. And you could do that for just a few days, maybe not for a full week. And then maybe have them do a half a stick in the morning and try a half a stick in the afternoon. And then if they do okay in a few 4 or 5 days, then go ahead and do a full stick in the morning. You can do 2 sticks of both of them not both, like 4 total in a day, but one of each if you want, or 2 of one of them each day without any problem. It's actually recommended if you want the best weight loss benefits. Oh, and the other thing I'll mention, this is not something that's in the literature or that it's in either of the product information sheets, but I am affected by this, and some of my folks have been affected by this over the years. If I don't eat something within about 45 minutes of drinking my Slim, I actually get really, really nauseous. And it doesn't have to be a meal. It can be a handful of nuts. It could be just, some kind of a little granola bar or something, but I have to eat something. It can even be an apple. But I think it's because my blood sugars are typically pretty low, and now it's going even lower, and that's going to make you really nauseous. So if you have somebody complaining of that, it's not typically recognized as a side effect like in our literature, but I think it is probably something that some people are going to experience, and I think you should just be aware of it and just
Can I
tell them.
be super annoying and ask you to repeat that? Because I was typing the last thing you said.
Uh-huh.
I've never heard anybody say that before, and we have
Oh,
had this issue, and I have lost people because of it because I didn't know how to explain it. I just need to hear you say that again because
the nausea.
yeah,
Okay.
I've never heard that.
So again, this is not in our literature, and I can't say that, go to the product information sheet, but this is what I have found over the last 7 years, and I personally experience it. I think that some folks who naturally have lower blood sugar naturally, especially if you drink your Slim when you first wake up in the morning, so you haven't had anything to eat since dinner the night before, your blood sugars are pretty low, and now you take Slim, which is decreasing your blood sugar even more in some cases, that's going to give you a lot of nausea. So you don't have to eat a full meal. Literally, I can take like 8 almonds and I'm fine, but I have to put something within 45 minutes. If I don't within 30 to 45 minutes, I feel very, very nauseous, and it's not something that's easy for me to recover from. So I always have something to eat pretty quickly.
Thank you so much. This would have helped me a few times in my journey.
I only figured it out
So
because
good
of
to,
me, and I just and then other people started mentioning it. I'm like, try eating something because they weren't eating.
yeah.
So
When people have said it, I'm like, I have literally have no idea why that's happening to you, but this makes so much sense. Thank
yeah,
you.
you're welcome anytime. All right, so let's talk about typical questions and concerns that you might get from people because of Slim or either one of the Slims. So you always hear this one, so I had to throw it in there, you guys. This is really just an FDA regulation because it's extracted from the green coffee bean, the chlorogenic acid. We have to say that it contains less than 2% natural caffeine. That is so negligible. That is less than a half a cup of decaf coffee. I mean, it is so nothing. As a matter of fact, um, every lot of Slim gets a sample sent out to a different independent company. And when I met with the I had my whole they probably hated me. I had my whole list of, my what do you call it? Anyway, my notepad full of questions. And they told me that they had 3 different independent companies test Slim, and none of them could find any caffeine in it. And the only reason it's on the packaging is because that chlorogenic acid is on the ingredient list. So do with that what you will. You can't say it doesn't have caffeine in it, but you can say to people that it has. By regulation, the FDA requires us to say that it has less than 2%, could be 0, and that 2%, less than 2%, is the equivalent of like a half a cup of decaf coffee. So the people should not get the jitters by any means. Okay, this is another one I've gotten recently because there's been some stuff in the news about chromium and its effect on the kidneys and the liver, and is it really safe? And you're getting it from your food, and should you be taking the supplements? And it really is a safe product unless you're drinking like 5 to 6 or 7 Slims a day and then taking other chromium supplements. You can see here there's some really good resources from the Institute of Medicine and some other places that have they've done the studies, and they've shown that you can take up to 1,000 micrograms of chromium each day. And both of our Slims only have 200 micrograms of chromium. So even if you did one of each day, you're only getting 400 micrograms, and it's safe to have up to 1,000. So just put your minds at ease, and anybody else who may come along and ask about it. Another one I get is people say, I'm allergic to watermelon, I'm allergic to lime, or whatever, one of the fruits that are in that, one of those original flavors. And this is something that I doubt will ever, ever, ever affect them. But again, if they're uber sensitive, have them ask their doctor about it. But here's the deal. The way that the fruit flavors are extracted from the actual fruit removes the protein. And that's typically what causes the allergy. So once you remove the protein, the allergic part of it is gone. Excuse me. But again, we have to be really careful. If somebody is, has, you know, a terrible allergy to one of those fruits, maybe they shouldn't, or maybe they should do the other one that doesn't have that fruit in it, or just ask their doctor about it. All right. What is it colored by? One of the questions or concerns people have is, does it have red dye 40 in it, or what other does it have? How does it get that pink flavor or that pink look? And we all know that it's the beetroot. But if you look at these three options, there's the MBA, the hunger control, and then I did put for both of them the black cherry lime flavor. You'll see what they are flavored by and what gives it the color. So I think that's kind of neat to see. The combinations that's used for all three of them. You don't need to know that, you guys. I mean, it's in the stuff in the back office. You can pull it up if anybody really needs to know that. But in 7 years, the only thing I've had people ask me is, how does it get its pink color? Beetroot. That's easy enough. Nobody else has said anything else about any of these other things, but I just thought it was kind of cool to know. And now you know you can find it on the product information sheet. Okay, so let's summarize. This is going to look at both of them. In the center is going to show you what's similar. They both are available in the black cherry lime flavor. They both are clinically proven. You can say this because the studies support that to help you lose weight. It supports healthy glucose metabolism, low calorie, gluten-free, non-GMO, 100% vegetarian, helps support healthy blood pressure and lipids, helps you burn fat, not muscle. Those are things that you can compliantly say about both of them. And then each of them, underneath of them, you see the differences, obviously the flavors, and then the microbiome promoting the growth of good microbes. And we just reiterated those here. And then the different prebiotic fiber between the two, and the fact that slim hunger control helps reduce cravings. And I actually think both of them, I know both of them help you reduce cravings to sugar and carbs, which break down into sugar. But I think what they really mean here is that slim hunger control reduces how much you eat, because you could literally put that reduced cravings on both sides. I think that is the end. It is. So I'm going to escape and stop sharing so that I can come back and see everybody's wonderful faces, and, well, some of your faces, and see if anybody has any questions. Anybody have any questions? Did I forget anything?
You didn't forget anything. My question is, how do you retain all of this information? It's so exciting to hear it. Like, you just know all these things that
Well,
I'm like, oh yeah, I heard that before and I forgot that.
it's a
So
it's a
so
blessing and a
I'm proof that you
curse.
guys don't have to know all these things and you can still get really far.
Right. You too can sell plexus even if
Yes,
you don't have this crazy brain.
that's
And
true.
honestly, I think it's just a matter of, it's the stuff I get excited about.
Yeah.
And I like Ame Darling. When I first started, I watched all of her videos on YouTube
Mhm.
and just soaked it up. And I listened to them in the car, and I listened to them while I was in the shower. And I just, anything I could listen to, because I really wanted to understand. And maybe that's just the doctor in me, that I really wanted to understand the physiology and why it was happening. But please know that you guys don't have to know all of that. It's
Yeah.
sufficient to know that XOS increases the good bacteria in your gut.
Yeah, it's
And
so funny. I get to like I'm this level of excited and Lisa's like way up here about it and and I have this and people think I know a ton about the products and I'm
you
like, no,
do,
you
and
just
you
need to
do.
listen to Lisa. Yeah.
It's so funny. It's a blessing and a curse, but I do love sharing it because I think it's fun, and I think it's really important to, while you don't have to memorize it, it should get you excited that
Yes.
this is the kind of products you're representing. I would never be representing. I don't have to. I have a job that I love. I don't have to represent these products. I represent these products because they are far superior. And I can tell you, over the years of being a chiropractor, it's been it'll be 27 years in May. I have had so many supplements brought to me at my office, and people asking me to try their supplements because they were selling Juice Plus or they were selling whatever. And I can tell you, when we first opened, we tried Juice Plus for quite a while. Never saw a difference. And I'm not, saying anything bad against
Yeah.
Juice Plus or any of the other ones. I just feel like these are so much better quality, more bioavailable. It's just really, to me, a really impressive scientific body that we have. So
Yes. I'm the same way with it. It's one of the many ways that we align is
yeah,
that I can't even express to people enough how seriously, if you knew me before Plexus, you would understand I would never, never, never put my name to something that I didn't really believe in, and that it
Yeah.
took me digging in. Like I said, I dug into what's in it, why do we make it the way that we do, what, how does it work? I did all of that stuff. And I said, okay, then if I'm going to attach my name to this, because I don't really like to be wrong. I mean, it's okay if I'm wrong, and it's not a big deal. Like if I'm wrong, I'll admit it, but I intentionally try not to be. Does that make
Right.
sense? Like,
Absolutely.
so I
Absolutely.
worked really hard to make sure that these products were what they appeared to be, and to understand how they worked, and then to understand the integrity that the company had. And I said, okay, I can, hitch my, whatever to this company, and I can do this because I feel comfortable talking to people about them. And the reason we do this call is for you guys to get excited about it. Because listen, I'm never going to know all the things that Lisa knows. And I've been doing this for 9.5 years. I'm never going to remember all those things. It reminds me of stuff all the time. And I sat here and took a bunch of notes to remember to say these things because I forgot or I didn't hear them before. And it helps me to be better at customer service with people too. If we have these conversations, if we
Yeah.
show up and we listen to these kinds of facts and this kind of information, it makes you feel more empowered to then handle, your customer base or new people coming to you, how to answer some questions, or even, and I can't emphasize this enough, if what it is that you've heard the answer and you know that there is an answer, but you don't remember what it is, but you've been here and you've been listening, that gives you a level of confidence to go, I may not know what the answer is. Give me a minute. I'll be back. I'll find it. But here's what I do know. And you guys, that goes really far. There's been a ton of times I didn't know the answers to things, and I still enrolled that customer and they're still with me.
Yeah,
So,
and I think people appreciate it when you tell them, I don't know the answer, but I'm happy to find it for you." And that's how I also learned a lot, because when I first started, people would ask me
yeah,
questions. I would have to go do the research,
yeah.
and I wasn't gonna go, like, expect somebody else to do that for me. So I think
Hmm.
that is really, and that's when you're gonna remember it better if you've done the research. So I think it's really, it is a blessing to be associated with a company that puts such importance on quality, and they're just so full of integrity. So
Yes, yes, yes.
I think it's a pretty awesome thing that we get to do every day. So anybody have any questions before we're finished this evening? And honestly, I was going to say one more thing. I could sit here and tell you that Slim XOS increases bifidobacterium and Akkermansia, but I couldn't tell you. Oh, Akkermansia, I can easily say it 250 times. That's a round number. But if I didn't have the slides up, I'd have to have notes here because I don't memorize the numbers. I know it's 200 or 300. I know it's by the hundreds.
Yeah.
I know it's impressive, but if somebody wanted to know the exact number, I'd have to go look it up if I didn't have my PowerPoint, or if I didn't have PowerPoint, I'd have notes here with me, because I do believe that it's not important to like clutter my brain with all of those little details. I know it's like 367% or 365%, but
Right.
that's
And and also on that topic, just to kind of spin off of that is, listen, we can look at the people on this call and know that, I probably have talked to the most people, right? Not by a ton more than Lisa. I'm going to be honest. She's worked really hard and talked to lots of people and has an amazing team.
oh,
And she's running a team that is a jewel team. So I'm going to put that out there. But I will say, my point is in the quantity. So we're talking like percentages and statistics here. The quantity of people that I've talked to or that my team has brought to me who actually try to nail down those kind of specifics,
yeah.
even being from the DC area and you guys, Virginia, we have more of that than probably almost anywhere in the country. I'm gonna be real honest. Um, we get it. And Cheyenne used to always laugh and say, "Gosh, Angela, I never get these questions from anywhere but your team." And I'm like, "No," but
It's so special.
so funny. She's like, I have no idea. But it's not that rare that people try to hammer you on the level of specifics,
Yeah.
that were there like, but I want to just give you like a sigh of relief and a deep breath. And, if somebody is doing that, I've learned, just to add one little business thing, I have learned that most of the time it's that they have invested a lot of their personal identity and time and effort into whatever, whether it's because of a health situation or because it's their, their identity kind of to know all these things. And sometimes they're just looking for somebody to prove wrong. Like
Yeah,
every now and then
absolutely.
you run into those people sometimes, and I just bless and release those people. For the most part, people just want to know